teaching and works well for taking different disciplines. So we start out by having students immerse themselves in the space that they're working in. This might mean observing, this might mean interviewing, this is all kinds of ethnography, data gathering, and not assuming that you know the answer. Really observing with a child's mind and no assumptions.
So, and within that empathy work, we actually take time and have lectures on interviewing and interviewing techniques, the types of questions to ask, the way to ask questions, the way to get feedback. And we also teach students that just because you have a project and a goal, it doesn't mean the entire interview should surround that project, that goal, and those buzzwords. This is about getting to know people deeply. So even if your project, the first design project we had for the students was redesigning kind of the marriage engagement experience. So we encourage them to like not make every interview about what was the proposal, but get a full scope of like of that relationship, of their family's history of proposals or engagement, and maybe not even talk about marriage, just talk about their hobbies. So you want to get to know the people, their motivations, their beliefs and feelings that kind of inform their decision making, which is new for a lot of people, and using my experiences from the medical school was very different, because I was used to interviewing someone about their symptoms, like let's take a look at your rash, like how long have you had it for, and you try to like get a little bit of a social history, but nothing like the depth that we try to get from students. So we really go for rich, interesting stories, and sometimes those stories, this very first step of the design process, takes them in a very different direction from the actual design objective.
And the next phase, define, is where they synthesize what they found. This is actually the hardest step for a lot of students because it has to do with taking all the rich experience you found out in the world and deciding which problem you're going to solve. And it may well not be the one that was presented to you. I did one project where I started with redesigning a waiting room and ended up with realizing that the real problem is parents and children don't communicate about injuries in a way that's not punitive. So reframing away from your original problem takes a lot of courage and a lot of hard work, but we think it's really important to have this problem framing to guide the rest of the process, and we'll see why.
And that's the point where this the team is deciding which specific population they're going to be designing for, and really wrestling with the need that they have, and struggling with it. Is this an explicit need or an implicit need? Is this a need that the person even recognizes they have, or is it a need that we've seen from getting to know them as a person? And then this becomes kind of the directive for the next step.
You can't design for everybody. Designing for everybody is designing for nobody. So figure out who you're designing and what problem you're trying to solve. Ideation is what you've probably seen pictures of. People standing in front of whiteboards, drawing crazy drawings, people trying out solutions by lying on the floor and piling blocks on top of themselves. Ideation is when you try and get as many ideas out there as possible, using your mind, using your body, using a lot of physical objects. Prototyping is where you make one of those ideas into something real. It's really important to us that you do this fast and that you do it crappy, because you want to be able to get good feedback on your ideas as soon as possible, rather than sinking 2 weeks of coding time, and that's even if you're a fast coder, and then showing it to somebody and having them say, oh, looks nice, yeah, looks pretty good. That's not the kind of feedback you want. What does that tell you? You can't go anywhere with that. If you put it out in the market and then it flops, you have no idea what went wrong. So this is where the prototyping room, prototype and test. You prototype here, then you test with your user. This is where these supplies come in. You'll notice that we don't have like laser cutter, milling, fabrication, the sort of things you might see in an engineering design place. We have those are available other places on campus, but here you start with
some foam and tape.
Yeah, foam, nails, tape. We make stuff. Do we have any examples of like really rough prototypes taken around?
I think, well, we also have students clean up the spaces after they leave, so hopefully they're all gone. But
This would have been a prototype of a TV, for example.
Another idea behind these kind of like rough and rapid prototypes is we don't want people to be so invested in them that they're always pitching them. So when you test your prototype, it's not about selling it to someone, it's really about getting feedback. So we try to teach people that negative feedback about your prototype is awesome, because like it's actually giving you something to work with. If you just take it to people and get smiles and tell them how hard you worked on it, but you're not going to get valuable feedback. So we want people to put some version of a prototype out there, get negative feedback, and make the next one. Like take that one, rip it apart, cannibalize it, and use it for something else. And as you move through the process, you can develop more refined prototypes. So it's not to say that everything stays this low resolution, but the idea is before you start using more sophisticated materials and investing more time and money, you've gotten some of those easy questions answered in the beginning. Another thing I wanted to draw attention to is this process is drawn as a line, but in many ways it's actually circular or it's a spiral. So at each stage,
It's a jumble.
it's like, yeah, it's a big ball. You can go back. So we also teach a connection between prototyping and empathy. So how can you develop prototypes that will inform your empathy work? When it comes to completing one step, quote unquote, we also teach people that if as you move forward in the process you realize you want to go back, you're free to do that. So maybe you make a prototype and realize that you have not defined your problem specifically enough or with the population that you think there's going to be the most energy behind. You're free to then move back and redefine that problem. And that's why in the boot camp class we have students go through the process several times in several different projects, both individually and on teams, so they can experience what it feels like several times. So that way when they go out into the world, they can kind of make this process their own.
Cool. Bay Studio?
They do.
Let's head out into the Bay Studio, which is this long, skinny one.